Thank you, I think. No, actually, it was a challenge for everyone. You know, to have someone from Montgomery County, you know, especially from the Woodlands, a yuppie from the Woodlands. You know, there was a lot of concern. I think the good news is, because I am a Chamber of Commerce manager, that's why I did my whole adult life, is work in organizations like this, helping, you know, recruit companies to your community, helping your small businesses grow and survive tough times and hopefully grow in good times. I think that had a lot to do with, and the fact is, I did grow up in a rural state that was pretty small, and so all that helped. I love representing Polk County, and thank you for having me here today. And we've been fortunate to make very good friends through the years, both for our family and myself, so thank you for having me here. And thanks for putting this together. They want to talk real quickly. I know we got a week before Election Day, but there's a lot of concern about what's going to happen after November 2nd. You know, what's going to occur in the lame duck session, you know, that special session between the election and when the new Congress takes over. What's going to happen to our taxes? And when's the economy going to get going? You know, what's the impact of the health care law? So, Cindy, with your permission, I want to spend like maybe 10 minutes just talking through a couple of those issues and then opening it up if it's okay. Great. On the economy, you know, the good news is no country, how are you doing? Good to see you. No country bounces back from bad economic times quicker than America. I mean, Americans are just genetically disposed to getting out of recessions quickly. And we do it time and time again, but not this time. This is one of the slowest recoveries on record. It's 3 times slower than 1981 and 1982. Since the beginning of the year, our economic growth has dropped by 2/3. Consumer confidence is at the lowest it's been in 18 months now. Consumer confidence is lower than when the stimulus began. At this point in the recovery, businesses ought to be rehiring workers they laid off, hiring new ones, investing in new equipment, making new expansion plans. That's where we ought to be. We're not this time. Consumers, I'm convinced, consumers are concerned about the economy. Families are concerned about housing values, but they're also very worried about the debt. They see the dangerous levels of debt this country is going in, they know that can't be healthy for us, and they wonder who's going to have to pay all that back. There's good concern. So they're staying out of the stores, like we hoped they would be. Businesses at all levels, they don't have much confidence right now. Businesses are holding on to $2 trillion of capital that they normally would be investing at this point. They're not. And I listen to a lot of businesses of all sizes, not just in my district, but as the top Republican on the Joint Economic Committee, we meet with businesses and industries of every size and type across the country, and they all tell me the same thing, which is what they hear coming out of Washington. Talk of higher taxes, more regulation, higher healthcare costs from the new bill, higher energy costs from cap and trade, and sort of this anti-business rhetoric they hear. Their point is, look, it's hard enough to predict the market. Trying to predict the market in Washington is impossible. We're going to stand pat. And as long as they're standing pat, our economy isn't going forward. So we've got a real challenge going forward in the economy. I think one of the keys is take all tax increases off the table. Take it off as a discussion point. One, we're already an overtaxed nation. We don't need to add more to that. Secondly, taxing professionals and small businesses by increasing their taxes as the president proposed. Doing it in a recession, doing it anytime is not a smart idea. Doing it right now makes no sense because professionals and small businesses are the job creators that can help you most pull out of tough economic times. So we believe you ought to take that off the table completely. Secondly, we ought to take cap and trade, all the new energy tax, all the new talks of business taxes off the table as well, and provide a path back to a balanced budget. Show the public that there is a way to get back. It's not easy because America is spending, Congress is spending 40% more than they're thinking each year. Did last year, did this year, will next year. Unless we change our ways, we'll have a national debt of $20 trillion by the end of this century. It's so big, it's almost hard to to grasp it, you know what I mean, what that means. But every economic study tells us when a country owes as much as the size of their economy, their growth slows dramatically. Go from a go-go solid growth of the United States to a very sluggish, stagnant growth of Europe. That's what happens when you do get too much debt. Just like in your home, just like in your business, when your resources are going off to pay big mortgage notes, big interest payments, debt you're servicing, not enough is going to actually growing your business or growing your family. Same thing works at the federal level. So those are, I think, from an economic standpoint, some of our major challenges. And I also believe this drilling moratorium in the Gulf of Mexico, which continues in practice, is very damaging to our state. Texas has diversified our economy in a lot of ways, but a quarter of our economy still is related to energy, and even more so in our areas. And so not being able to drill either in the shallow waters or deep waters now for almost 6 months is taking its toll. And the longer this goes on, the more harm there will be done to our businesses, especially small and mid-sized companies. I flew back to Washington last week, met with the director of Oceans Energy Management that does all the leasing. You know, I'm not convinced they're permit ready. I'm not convinced that they're going to grant any new permits before the end of the year. We hope they do. But try to drive home the point that every day people aren't back to work on those rigs, it's costing us jobs. I mean, real people, real jobs. And I can guarantee you the moratorium isn't over until the permits get granted and we go back to work. I mean, that's the bottom line. So that one is a major issue for us in Texas as well. Healthcare is another, I think, huge concern. Taxes and jobs, spending in healthcare, major concerns. Here's your new healthcare law, America. This is what it looks like. After the bill passed, there's actually 2 of them the President signed. I asked my Joint Economic Committee staff to go through all 2,801 pages of the new law. I said, put it on a chart so we can see how this works. Well, this is the chart. And by the way, this is actually only 1/3 of all the new bureaucracies in this new healthcare law. What's sad is I can actually explain this chart to you. Everything in color is newly added and expanded by the bill, except this. The Secretary of Health and Human Services exists today, but the reason this person is so prominent, that's your new healthcare czar. This person has 600 new authorities under law today than they did before this became law. On those 2,800 pages, this person is referenced 2,200 times. This is the key to new government-controlled healthcare, this one person. Everything in this dark blue, everything in dark blue is government that is expanded under this bill. Everything in rust or orange, those are new institutions or agencies that ultimately will hold the power to ration healthcare, either through denying treatments, denying and lowering reimbursements like the community hospitals, physicians, home health care agencies, things like that. We basically ration care. You know, people can't get it close to them or convenient, so they don't get it whatsoever. They don't have the power immediately, but as the government runs out of money to fund all this, and they will, those agencies take on tremendous power as far as rationing. Everything in green on the chart is $1 trillion of new taxes and new cuts to Medicare. New taxes on everything, $500 billion new taxes on everything from insurance plans, medical devices, tanning beds, on Medicare as a surcharge and new investment income for certain people, $500 billion, so much so that we estimate the IRS will have to hire 16,000 new workers to force people to comply with all the new laws in this state. The other part of the green are those cuts, $500 billion in cuts to Medicare. The bulk of it is to Medicare Advantage plans. Those are the most popular plans in Medicare today, most popular in Texas. They're very important to areas like East Texas, because Medicare Advantage puts into one plan your medicines, your doctors, your hospitals, preventive care, and gives you choices. That's why in rural areas, Medicare Advantage is hugely popular, because we don't have as many choices as we would like. And so, very key. They take the biggest hit under these cuts. The White House, its own Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, estimate that half of all Texas seniors will either be forced out of their Medicare Advantage plan they have today, or they will eventually pay up to $900 more a year to keep the same plan they have today. So major impact, not this year, but in years to come. We're already starting to see some of it. The government forced out, closed down some of the Medicare Advantage choices already. They decided that it wasn't a distinctive enough choice in the government's view. We've already had constituents complain that they no longer can have the plan they chose, they prefer. The other part is cuts with that $500 billion is to community hospitals, home health care agencies, skilled nursing facilities, hospice care, all take major cuts under this bill. And those cuts don't go to make Medicare better, they go to fund a new health care plan. That's very frustrating. Everything in light blue is actually government expansion into the healthcare market. This is, of this whole chart, when you ask me which circle or square concerns you the most, it's right here, the essential health benefits package. Here's why. Here are the physicians, here are patients. In between are 159 new government agencies, commissions, bureaucracies involved between you and your doctor on healthcare issues. The Health and Human Services Secretary determines what plans can be offered, who can offer them, what healthcare providers can be in them, you know, what you pay for. I mean, it's just remarkable power. Because the heart of this bill is this: everyone in America must have government-approved health care or pay a tax. And most businesses, not all, most businesses have to offer government-approved health care or pay a tax. That's the crux of all of it. And this person determines what that government-approved plan is going to be. They have tremendous power. And for businesses, I know they were promised by the president that if you like your health care plan, you can keep it. That's not the case. According, again, to the White House's own administration, up to 70% of workers who get their health care at work will have to have their plan changed to meet the new mandates. There are 17 new mandates on businesses. Some of them are taking place this year, you know, covering kids up to age 26, covering pre-existing illnesses, covering all children, are already taking place and driving up health care today. A lot of these mandates are very good ones. Everyone in this room would agree with some of them. All of them drive up the cost of health care. This is why it's not going down, it's going up, but it all comes down to what the government-approved health care plan is going to be. You've already seen problems. You've seen colleges now who are struggling to maintain their college plans because the law requires them to cover everyone up to age 26. Well, that doesn't work when you're trying to cover college kids for $5 a month because they're pretty healthy. They don't get injured very often. You've got companies like McDonald's, whose their mini-med plans, you know, were considered government-approved. They did eventually get away with. You've got child-only plans that have been dropped across the country because, again, it wasn't, quote, government-approved. We're going to see more and more of those problems arise as we go forward because it all comes back to that. Final point, I guess, two final points. As I said, this only reflects 1/3 of the new bureaucracies. To make it all fit, we traded what we call little bundles of bureaucracy. Right here, all the tricolored areas on the chart that represent, this is 22 additional federal agencies we couldn't fit on the chart, 59 new federal grant programs that didn't exist, and demonstration program didn't exist before. These are the 26 pilot programs. Here are the 19 special interest provisions that were put in the law to get votes to pass it. 5 special interest provisions for AARP, $5 billion union exemptions in Louisiana. Louisiana Purchase, the Florida carve-out, the Northeast Hospital, all those provisions are in that portion of the bill. And to tell you how meticulous we were, my staff was, they worked 4 months, including weekends and nights, to do this. That if you go to our website, pull it up on your computer, and you look, all these lines are new relationships. I think the black are the new regulation, red is the new reporting requirements, green are the new money flows, yellow are the new oversight things. But if you pull up on our website and pull it up real tightly, you'll see embedded in every line of this is the exact section of law that creates that. We were so meticulous in putting this together because we want the country to see what this new law looks like. I don't know what your impression is when you see this, but most people agree it's not the health care reform they were hoping for. And there's going to be a lot of challenges, especially in a community like this that's investing in health care, where it's critical you have quality care here at home so the community can thrive. There's going to be a lot of impacts, unintended consequences from this bill that has effects on us as families and communities themselves. So, Sydney, with that really encouraging report, that's why we brought the cookies, comfort food.
So that everybody can have a sugar high.
Yeah, exactly right. Get the drinks later, I guess. Let's stop and take some questions.
Sure.
That's okay.
Go right ahead.
Well, yes, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Good to see you.
With the President's questionable support of our military, how does that fit into the military medical, the VA medical?
There's still some problems. They initially forgot, Lowell, to include TRICARE and VA care as government approved in the bill, so they had to go back in and fix that. When they did that, they actually left out, though, again, certain veterans with children with certain diseases, so they've got to fix that as well. Ultimately, they will. But I think the greatest concern going forward is down the line. We're going to run out of money to pay for this. I guarantee you today. When that happens, the question is, when they start robbing Peter to pay Paul, who will they take money from? So the worry is for veterans, TRICARE, military care down the road, not immediately, but down the road, what's going to happen? That's a concern I have. So initially, going to be fine. Keith?
I suppose a week from now will be a little easier to have a perspective, but what is this hold in the next few months? Is repeal and replace even feasible? Something even feasible?
I think a lot depends on November 2nd, but clearly the president will still have a veto right. So full repeal, to make that the law, will be impossible. He doesn't have an interest in changing it or repealing. But Republicans have a couple options. One, Congress holds a purse string, so we can zero fund these regulatory agencies that we believe are the most damaging in this. And you can't do all of it. You need to pick out, I think, the worst. Secondly, we're going to pull out areas of this health care bill that we think are unconstitutional, such as the mandate that you buy, that you're forced to buy government-approved health care, and try to pass it. The president will certainly veto it, but we think we ought to have a debate because there wasn't much when all this was put together. And then finally, this mandates the states put exchanges in and a number of things. We're going to encourage the states to try to erect market-based exchanges and challenge Washington on some of those elements of this. And we're going to do that here in Texas as well. And let them tell them, no, you have the wrong solution. You know what I mean? Because states oftentimes the most innovative, coming up with the answers that actually work for their region or their state. And so there are 2 or 3 avenues, none of them easy, all of them I think important. At the end of the day, we still need health care reform. We just don't believe this is the right answer. Your thoughts?
Well, you know this, but our community is unlike a lot of rural American communities in that we do have a good hospital here.
Very important.
And You know, for so many years, it's been so difficult for rural America to keep their little hospitals. Ours is not even a little, it's a nice hospital. We've got good medical care here. And I think everyone in this room would share the thought that we want to keep it. And it's just a comment. I don't have any solutions for you. I'm hoping that you and we can all work together to come up with something to keep what we have.
Well, right now, reimbursements on Medicare and Medicaid are poor. 1/3 of U.S. hospitals already lose money because of their Medicaid. Under this, all the new people, 30 million they're going to cover, half of those will come in Medicaid, which is even a worse reimbursement. And so there's a real concern that this will put a real strain on community hospitals, especially in border states, because at the end of the day, they're still not covering 23 million people, many of them here illegally, many of them here in Texas. And so we'll probably end up with the worst of all worlds, private insurance being driven up in cost, fewer reimbursements, and we're still covering the uninsured. And so for our areas, this holds greater risk.
Sure.
I wish I had better news.
No, I wish you did too. Peggy being in the healthcare business, I'm concerned, and she shares thoughts with me too. And we appreciate your efforts because I know it's going to be a tough battle.
It is. Thank you.
Congressman Brady, this situation, this lady that I know, her doctor in Houston has basically, I guess the doctors are doctors are just scared if they have all these people on Medicare, who's going to help, if they don't want to not take care of their patients, but they can't do it for free. And this doctor has said, you pay me like a retainer.
It's concierge service. We're seeing a lot of that. In fact, we were just over in Woodville, and Casey, our constituent, said, look, our doctors just sent us a letter, no Medicare patients. I just can't see them. 300 physicians in Texas have already made that decision, that they can no longer afford to see Medicare patients because of what was left out of this, which was fair reimbursements. Going forward, we've had, in our district, we've had a number of people come forward with that, with a letter that says their clinic is going to a concierge, where they pay $1,500, $1,600 a year. They're going to see that many patients. That's good if you can afford that.
Yeah.
But our system can't handle a 2-2.
And there's no guarantee
system.
that that will work.
Nothing done in here either. I've spent some time since it became law down at the Texas Medical Center with the universities that are turning out doctors and new nurses, because there was nothing put in place to increase the infrastructure for people in this plan. And so they estimate that we're short 25,000 to 40,000 physicians to cover this, and short 250,000 nurses to cover this. And nothing was done to deal with that. So we're trying to nationwide. But in Texas, we've got, like the rest of the country, our nurses are aging out. That's the nice way of saying it. And we're just not replacing them at the same level. So we've got a challenge here as well. Yes,
Okay,
Cindy?
so further down the road, like in other countries that have gone to this type of setup, and this would be my fear, is that further down the road, 10 years from now, we have something like this, then actually the government is going to be able to dictate to doctors and nurses where they live, where they can practice, what they can do or not do. Because if in our area, let's say we have an overabundance of GPs, then a young, newly graduated medical student who wishes to come join his father's practice here is going to be told, no, we need you in New Mexico.
I don't know about that exact scenario, but I do know this. This person has control over not just every plan that can be offered, but what providers can be part of that plan. And so when the Secretary of Health and Human Services complains today, if someone raises issues, I guarantee the providers are raising it knowing that person can ultimately decide if they're going to be, as a nurse, part of this, a hospital, a physician, whatever. So it shifts so much power away from communities and out there. Yes, sir.
Included in the Health Care Act, there was a small little thing that hadn't got a lot of press about the requirement to issue Form 1099 to everybody that a business does products or services for over $600. I'm CPA, do a lot of compliance work. Small businesses, you know, we're sitting here, this is 2 years out, we're trying to figure out how we're gonna be able to comply with this with these clients who bring their information in a shoebox. The AIC has sent a letter to the administration asking that there be a small business exemption of some sort, based off revenue. Is there any chance of that happening?
Yes, we're gonna be able to overturn it, if not in whole and part, but we're gonna seek, Republicans will seek to overturn it completely. Yeah, it's huge paperwork burden. It doesn't, it generates $17 billion, they estimate, because they think small businesses are cheating on their taxes in their report. And so, but the cure is worse than the problem, if there is one. And so, yeah, we are gonna turn it back.
I agree with that, and I agree it would carry it out some for people who do not with their income, but it's not going to offset the cost.
No, anyway. The small businesses already pay an inordinate amount of their revenue to comply with regulations as it is today. You know, bigger companies have bigger staffs and bigger resources to do it. It comes down to you know, in here, you know, in Livingston. So, thanks for raising it. It may not be getting a lot of media press, getting a ton of lawmaker attention.
Actually, it's in a lot of our emails going around.
You know, when you pass a 2,801 page bill, and two of them that doesn't connect with each other, and they do it, rush it through as they did, you're gonna find, we're gonna hear more of these things.
Great.
Yes, sir.
I was hearing on the news the other day that supposedly that our glorious leaders are going to try to legislate by executive order bypass Congress in all entity. If there's an executive, isn't there a thing that Congress can overturn an executive order?
You know, if not overturn, they can attempt to mitigate it. Not always easy to do, because whatever bills you put it in ultimately goes to the president. So as long as that veto pen works in checks and balances, he's got a huge check, you know, on that. So it's not easy to.
I couldn't remember too much about constitutional law, I just thought I did.
Yeah.
I had one other
Yes, sir.
hack question for you. On the whole tax risk. What do I need to be telling my clients who come in and go and ask what they should do about their estate plans? Do you see anything happening by the end of the year or in the first quarter?
I sure hope so, but I've been wrong for the past 2 years.
I've been wrong for 10 years.
Yeah. And in fact, it raises the issue of, by January 1st, nearly $4 trillion of new tax increases come about, hit. We call the tax bomb, will go off January 1st unless Congress acts. That's all the Bush tax cuts. It's alternative minimum tax. It's the death tax. A number of things like the state and local sales tax deduction, which saves Texas more than $1 billion a year. All that goes away unless Congress acts between now and then. And the answer is both for that tax bomb and for the death tax. I don't know what Democrats will do when we get back. They have a lot of things on their plate that they put off into lame duck. We still don't have a budget. First time in 40 years they didn't even propose a budget. They haven't passed any of the 12 spending bills that finance go. They have all these tax increases that have to be dealt with. And they've got a lot on their plate. We worry that they're going to take up, you know, some form of cap and trade, you know, some type of new energy tax. A lot depends on what happens November 2nd. And I say that because I watched as Republicans were fired for spending too much, and members didn't come back. What people don't realize is that when a lawmaker is defeated on November 2nd, November 3rd, they get a call from House Administration telling them they need to get out of their office and close their offices down. Unlike the Senate, where you're the senator till the new one takes place, and the new senator's in trailers until you're out. In the House, it is immediately moved. What happens is it throws these lawmakers into disarray. Some barely come back at all after they've been defeated. They've lost their job, all their staffs have lost their jobs, they're closing down offices. So lame duck sessions after a major change, if that occurs, are notoriously short and of little substance, which may be good, except that we need the taxes to be dealt with right now. On Ways and Means, I and Shelley Berkeley of Nevada lead the effort to permanently, our goal is to permanently do away with death tax. But we work with all the family farms, small business organizations on a compromise. We can't do away with it with President Obama in office. What can be done that gives small businesses and farms, family farms, some certainty? And they came up, these 42 groups came up with, you know, index it up to $5 million per person and a 35% tax rate, indexed again for inflation, which would cover 99.9% of the states. But we can't get a vote on that. I was certain we would get this issue dealt with last year before we went to zero. Then I was certain it would be done early this year. They blew past that. I was certain they'd do it by August. No. So even though in my mind I keep thinking, certainly they'll do this before we leave, before January. I'm 0 for 3 already. So I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know how accountants give their clients advice on what to do on their tax treatment, on selling capital gains.
We just look really stupid.
Well, you should, because you have no guidance, and really, we've known for years and years of this time. There's no excuse to be down the last couple.
You know, it was interesting, we met with the IRS at one of our conferences, and they were really caught flat-footed with this as well. And they are frantically working to issue regulations for us to deal with carryover basis for this 1 year only. What's scaring me is they are spending a lot of money and a lot of time and effort to build an entire system to account for carryover basis that's only maybe with us for this 1 year. They're bound to use it for something else, you know, like our stock sales.
Well, I worry, you know, with what all this does to people who are trying to decide whether to sell a business or property right now. Seniors who get a lot of their income from dividends, if those taxes triple, you know, which the president's proposed, what that does to them. If withholding, I mean, on November 20th, the IRS has to tell you guys, all of us, how much to withhold for the next pay periods, starting January 1st. If Congress hasn't acted, you know, people may see, you know, reductions in their take-home pay for several months before it balances. It's going to be another paperwork nightmare for businesses.
Are there any new surprises coming along in the housing industry?
In the housing industry, you've had a lot as it is.
That's what I'm saying. Are there any more that we know about?
Oh, good or bad?
It's no surprise, but another item that didn't get addressed, that's the 800-pound gorilla, is what to do with Fannie and Freddie. I mean, we've already, that is the single largest bailout in American history. We've already, I think, as taxpayers, we together put in some $130 billion already, bought 1.5 trillion of securities and unsecured debt. New report says that could go much higher than that. So what we have today is absolutely unsustainable. We need to figure out a way to transition to a stable, private market for those a secondary market for those prime conforming loans. We've got to be able to get to that over time, not overnight. We can't do that. We've got to get some competition and market solutions, because right now, the way Fannie and Freddie is set up, you can be a government entity subject to government discipline, or you can be a free market agency subject to the market disciplines. You can't be both because you're subject to neither. That's Fannie and Freddie's thing. One of the reasons they're, so we've got to create some glide path where we get to that market, where there are competitive 30-year fixed rate loans, you know what I mean, that people count. It won't be easy to do, but that was one of my reasons I voted so strongly no against the financial reform package, is it did meddle in everything except what needed to be done. Any thoughts?
My husband is a residential real estate appraiser, so this area, believe it or not, still has some good transactions going on, thank God. But we are seeing a bigger influx of foreclosures. We got a call 2 weeks ago from a company out of Hawaii. So they had received the FHA contract to do all these foreclosures. We want to know how many he can handle in a month. But they had that many with some huge atrocious amount. They were handling it nationwide, and I don't remember the name of the company. But I just feel like it's coming. We're starting to see more foreclosures in this area. And we're seeing it's harder for them to get funding. People with straight A credit,
Yeah.
that's just more difficult.
Go overcorrected on.
And the management.
There's a balance in there.
Right, and the AMCs that they put, between the borrower, or between the appraiser and the lenders. So it stifled communication, albeit there was some that was derogatory out there. In some instances, there is a certain amount of communication that they need to have that they're not supposed to have there. So.
It's going to be a big
Yeah.
challenge. And we're going to have to work with realtors, home builders, other organizations to figure out how we do that in a way that doesn't disrupt the market, but ultimately gets to a different model, the one we have to. And you got to separate the two functions of Fannie and Freddie. One of them was to provide affordable, stable financing for conforming loans, which it did beautifully for a long time. And then all of its affordable housing goals, which blew up the first original mission. So that's got to be something. I don't know the exact answer, but I think some ideas.
Mr. Brady, we've got time for a few more questions.
Mr. Brady, what about the devaluation of the dollar? What do we do to slow that down? Because that's about a 1,000-pound gorilla. That's a huge threat to our economy.
Well, getting our financial house in order is probably the main thing clearly we can do to strengthen the dollar and restore, I think, confidence in us as a country. The only reason that our public debt continues to be purchased around the world is people are looking at the problems in Europe and Greece, Ireland, and other. We look good only by comparison, but for those troubles, the price we would be paying on our debt would be dramatically higher. And when that happens, we think our debt deficits each year is high today. When we lose investor confidence, it goes through the roof, and we're in serious trouble. Right today, we have, and last year as well, the third worst deficit on the globe. We are piling up debt in almost, again, unfathomable amounts. I think the Federal Reserve Board, actually, in its emergency actions, probably did more to keep us out of financial, a severe depression than anything else. They quickly took most of that back.